I'm Rebecca Daly, I'm the Centenary Programme Manager for the Royal Air Force Museum. We're really excited to be celebrating International Women's Day, and we've got a very special, unique documentary that's being aired here at the museum. It's the story of the Secret Spitfires, and this is a women's story. It's a story of thousands of women in the south of England who were drafted in to create the parts that go into Spitfires, because the Spitfire factories had become real targets for the enemy, so that they were being bombed on a regular basis. There was a move to make all the parts of Spitfires in little garages and tiny little back rooms all over the south of England. And this was mainly work that was undertaken by women who were specially trained, and nobody was allowed to know. And very often the women themselves didn't know what the parts would be for. They were just told, this is your task to make this. So it was very important and very secret war work. And there's a fantastic new documentary that's just been made, and we're very privileged to have this airing at the museum.
The responsibility of individual people, like myself, was so important to the proceeds of war.
So the rights of women have played a huge part in the Royal Air Force story, and that's on two fronts. One is the fact that women have always played a part in the RAF, and ever since the First World War, when the RAF was created, women were a massive part of that effort, because the RAF was created in the middle of the First World War, or in fact towards the end, when women had already proven themselves to be huge contributors to the war effort. They weren't allowed to be pilots, but they did all kinds of other very, very important roles. After the war, the women were then able to go and campaign for the right to vote, and that was extremely important that they had proven themselves, not quite the front lines, but nearly the front lines throughout the First World War. So all the way through, the Women's Royal Air Force became an extremely important part of the RAF journey. Women didn't have the right to be on the front line until the 1990s, which might seem rather recent to some of us, but they now have full and equal rights with men within the Royal Air Force. The RAF has had to change immensely to enable that to happen, but it's now a very promising and equal opportunities force. The RAF has also had a very important role in defending the rights of women around the globe, and I know that that's a particularly poignant part of the journey in some of the places that the RAF has served over the last 30 years. International Women's Day this year has got a great motto. It's called Be Bold for Change, and being bold for change is what the RAF Museum is really up to at the moment. We've got a massive redevelopment programme going on, and it's called the RAF Centenary Programme, because the RAF is 100 years old next year in 2018, and that is all being masterminded and spearheaded by women. So Maggie Appleton MBE is our Chief Executive, Karen Whitting is our Director of that Centenary Programme, and I'm managing the whole programme. So it's very, very female orientated. It's a huge, bold programme. Anybody who's been past the museum recently will have seen there's a lot of diggers, and we're having a lot of fun creating a whole new museum for the next 100 years of the Royal Air Force. So being bold for change is something that we're embracing, both as part of International Women's Day and as part of the Royal Air Force Museum.
I've topped the wind-swept heights with easy grace, where never lark or ever eagle flew, and why with silent lift in mind I've trod the high untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
My name is Ethem Çetintaş. I am the producer and co-director of the film along with Carl Harmon, who's the other half of the creative team. And the story all starts basically with Gary, on my left over there, coming over to me to introduce this Norman Parker character, who's on my left, who is in fact one of the original workers of the factories during the Second World War, which were all kept secret, and they built thousands of Spitfires. And this man is one of them. Tell us a little bit about the factories, because this is the International Day for Women, and especially the Salisbury factories. Where did the women come into it?
Well, the women came into it because they were diverted into doing war work. Many of them were not associated with industry. In fact, Salisbury is not an industrial town at all. It's purely and simply a town wrapped around the cathedral. But after the bombing of the Itchen and Woolston factories in 1940, overnight, all Spitfire production in southern England was dispersed on a 50-mile radius of Southampton.
And girls worked there as well?
Well, I would think, I don't know what the ratio was, but I would think it's something like 70-30, 70 women to 30 men. And the women were very, very good because they hadn't got a clue what they were doing. They were shown what to do, how to do it, and they just did it. And gradually they get experience. But normally they just got on with doing whatever needed to be done.
The film typifies what we're talking about with the power of women. And it's really good now to see women at the end of the war were sidelined again, and now you're coming back. And I think that this day today really gives you an opportunity again to boost the spirit of schoolgirls as well, and they can realise they can do anything.
It's strange because I can take this right back to the beginnings. My grandmother was a suffragette. She worked for Emmeline Pankhurst. In fact, she went to prison as part of the suffragette movement. So from the beginning, I've realised that the power of women is something not to argue with.
Yeah, likewise, I mean, my mother was the first, and my grandmother was the first lady to ever get a driver's license. So what I would say is modesty describes, I think, International Women's Day the most. And I think it's time women stopped having this modesty and come out and lay down what they did, what they're capable of doing, and what they ought to be doing in the future, because they did it all before.